arguably one of the most important topics. We're going to talk about our fourth video tonight in our series of 4 videos on tennis elbow treatment, going through specific exercises you need to do to permanently get rid of that tennis elbow. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch last week's video, which is video number 3, where we go through 3 quick wins and hacks to get temporary and moderate relief in that elbow. And tonight, we're going to actually teach you how to get rid of it through long-term relief. All right. So if there's anything to depict from last week's video, remember, it's that research found a connection between weakness in the back and the shoulder muscles in the development of elbow pain, specifically tennis elbow or lateral epicondylgia. Okay. That's the medical term for it. So why are we talking about these? What's important about it? We're going to talk about really 3 things in detail, as always: the 2 best stretches to improve your overall mobility, the 2 best strengthening exercises to improve your overall strength, and then number 3 is how to stop tennis elbow from returning permanently. Okay, those are the very important topics for tonight. And the first 2 things we're going to talk about are stretches to really improve your mid-back thoracic extension mobility and your wrist extension mobility. And you might be thinking, why the heck would it help to improve my wrist mobility down here if my elbow's here? Why the heck would we be working on my shoulder up here if my elbow pain's over here? Excuse me. And the reason why is because 80-90% of the time, I find people are restricted with their wrist mobility, mainly pulling back into wrist extension this way. So mainly they're tight. They might get some pinching here in the front of the wrist. They might feel a stretching sensation in their flexors of their forearm. So that needs to be addressed because you need to have the areas mobile above, right, at the shoulder and below at the wrist. If those areas are mobile and they move and function well, you're not going to have a kink in the chain in between those 2 areas, right? It's like having a kink in the hose. If you're washing your car, say you have a kink in the hose where it's like a little bit of a knot and the kind of hose is actually twisted up, right? What's going to happen is water's not going to come out the other end. It's the same thing with your body. You have to make sure you have good mobility and good strength above and below. So we're going to talk about how to improve that first. Then we're going to talk about how to strengthen those areas second. All right, so let me share my screen and I'll kind of dive into the details here. We'll make it quick. We'll show you videos of things so you can know how to do it properly. If you have questions, feel free to comment down below. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe as well. So with that being said, let me share screen here and we will dive into the first exercise, or the first 2, I should say, which are going to go through really how to just mobilize that thoracic spine, then open up that wrist joint through some banded mobilizations, which I'm a huge fan of because I know that they work really well after having used them for 4 to 5 years now with clients online. Okay, so this is thoracic extension mobility. This is on our Instagram. I'm happy to share the link if you guys are interested. Just comment down below if you want this. This is a great way. It's called a peanut self-mobilization to open up your thoracic spine. So literally all I'm doing is I took 2 lacrosse balls, I put it in a long Nike sock, like a basketball sock, and they're nice and firm, so they're going to stay together, and you're going to put those right on the edges of the spine. So if your spine's here directly in the middle, you want to put those 2 kind of lacrosse balls around the spine, and that's going to help us to mobilize those segments. So we're going to take you through kind of how to do it here, right? You're putting those 2 kind of lacrosse balls right on the mid-back area. You want to start kind of right here below your shoulder blades. And then you're going to take a crisscross position with your arms, right? Head relaxed. And you're going to just crunch upwards by raising your shoulders a few inches off the ground and then come all the way back into extension. This is actually going to kind of mobilize your mid-back area while you're pressing into the vertebrae. So you're actually mobilizing the spine, working the joints to help loosen them up while you're actually stretching your thoracic spine. But you have to make sure you do not hyperextend your lower back. So you should not be overarching your lower back. Like if you've ever seen people trying to lift too much weight at the gym or your CrossFit box, they tend to do this and lean backwards and arch their back a lot. You don't want to do this here. You want to keep your abs locked down, back flat, and that's going to truly get motion from your mid-back as you do it. Okay, so give that a go. That's the first exercise. Again, 2 to 3 sets of about 15 reps on each stiff segment. So start at the base of your actual shoulder blades and then work your way up all the way to the top of the shoulder blades. Now we get the whole mid-back area, and usually you're going to be tightest at that midpoint of the shoulder blade area. So spend some time there. So that's exercise number 1, peanut self-mobilization for thoracic extension. Bit of a mouthful. The second exercise is closed kinetic chain, or we call it CKC, wrist extension mobilization. Right? You don't need much here, guys. This is me doing this from my basement just to show you. These bands were $20 for a set of 4 on Amazon. I get no plug for that, but I usually buy the leaky bands. They're usually the cheapest and they last the longest. You don't have to get the rogue expensive bands. But anyways, you're going to put this band on the wrist crease where you might feel the pinching when you stretch. You're going to step on it with 1 foot and you're going to use a table or something that's high set off the ground. You can use a box if you have that, table at home. You want a nice kind of downwards pull here with 1/3 of the palm hanging off the edge of the table. and you're going to lean that kind of forearm forward over your wrist without your actual palm lifting up off the table. Okay, so you're going to go through and do this. You're going to hold for 3 seconds, and you want to drive that forearm in the way the arrow is pointing, and then you want to come back. If you want to intensify the stretch, you move more of the hand onto the table so it's fully covered. Okay, that's going to increase more stretch here on this area. So if you're doing this properly and you have a good enough band pull, you should feel no pinching in the front, and you should really feel kind of nothing going on too much towards the fingers here. You should feel more of a stretch here in the flexors of the forearm. Okay, and you might be asking, like, why the heck am I doing this? Because if you guys do push-ups, if you do anything where your hands are on the ground, which I know a lot of us do, like bird dogs and things like that, when you're in a quadruped position on your hands and knees, or bear crawls, whatever it may be, you need good wrist extension. If you don't have good wrist extension, all the stress and strain is going to go into the elbow joint, mainly right here, which is your lateral epicondyle, where all these muscles attach. And if you stretch it or you strengthen it, it's going to be painful. And that's why gripping gets really kind of painful, because you tend to overuse this area because you don't have good mobility here in the mid back, and you don't have good mobility here in the wrist. So number one, we're opening up mobility here through the peanut mobilization. And number two, we're opening up mobility here through the wrist. Okay, those are the first two most important things. Right now, we're going to dive into strengthening next. Like, strengthening is the second part of the cycle. These are the two best strengthening exercises I found to help open up kind of the mid back, provide good strength to that area of the thoracic spine, and shut down this area from being overused. Right, we're working other areas that are weak. And guys, this works for a lot of people, does not work for everyone. Right, you have to get assessed. I can't stress that enough. You have to get assessed to know exactly what's going on, and kind of see what you're dealing with. So this is shoulder external rotation off of the knee. So a lot of times people are weak here in this position. So they're going to show you a couple different ways to do it here. You can use a dumbbell or a band. I always recommend using a dumbbell first. And the way you would do this one is you would kind of put your knee at your side. You would hold a weight. I'm going to pretend my chapstick's a weight here. And I would keep my kind of elbow right in the divot of my knee. And all I'm doing here is I'm trying to come up into external rotation all the way up so my wrist is stacked over my kind of elbow, and then down slow for a 3 count. Right, so I hold good 3 seconds at the top, 1, 2, 3, down for 3. Okay, this is literally it, and you're using a very light weight, typically between 3 to 5 pounds, because it's a hard exercise to do. All right, so we'll show you the video of kind of how they do it here. I'll make this bigger. All right, so typically you're in this position. You can do it in a forward position from this plane with your leg in front of you, and that works very similar muscle. It's a little bit harder to do it out there where I was, but I would say start here where she is, with that elbow right in front of the shoulder, right, to simulate like an overhead press, nice and slow. And then you can work your way into doing it the way I just showed you, where your arm's at 90 degrees, right? If you want to make it harder than a dumbbell, because a dumbbell exerts force just straight down due to gravity, you can use a band. And a band's going to give you constant resistance throughout the whole range of motion, which is why it's harder and why bands are used a lot in rehab, right? And these are the muscles you're going to work. You're going to work your teres minor, right, which is right here, your infraspinatus muscle, the big red one, and the posterior deltoid. Those are the 3 big ones we want to target and strengthen. And if those are weak, they're going to affect your tennis elbow. So that's why you're doing this exercise. All right, so that is exercise number 1. Exercise number 2, we are going to move to here, and this is banded W's, one of my favorite all-time exercises, mainly for people with tennis elbow, because you don't have to grip too hard. A lot of times if you grip too excessively, you're going to irritate your tennis elbow. So you have to grip very lightly or change up the way you're gripping. Like maybe not wrap your thumb around and grip heavy like this. Maybe keep the thumb relaxed and use more of the fingers. This is a banded W where you're holding a band in a supinated grip with hands facing the ceiling. You're just pulling apart, right? You squeeze your elbows in, pin your shoulders back, and you pull that band apart, and you hold for 5 seconds. So this one I'm usually having people do about 1 to 2 sets of about kind of usually 10 to 12 repetitions, holding for 5 seconds on each, right? So I have a light grip with the bands, and I'm pulling out and holding. If you have very kind of painful tennis elbow and you're dealing with a huge issue, you can use a looped band around your actual wrist, so you don't have to grip it or anything. Keep your hands open and do it this way, right? That's another way around this. There's definitely modifications you guys can make so things don't become too painful, right? So give those exercises a try. Start with the mobility first. Mobility is the most important thing that you need to address first, because if you don't, the strengthening is not really going to work, right? You need mobility and strength both together. If you do one before the other, it's going to be kind of weird. You can't really have the strength without the mobility, and vice versa. So make sure you go through and do those. And the last thing I want to touch on before we wrap up is how to stop tennis elbow from returning. right? Everyone asks me this question. I see it in Facebook groups. I see it on Instagram. I get DMs about it, right? You want to reassess yourself every month. So every 4 weeks, you want to see, do I have pain with gripping, right? Write down the levels 0 to 10, 10 being bad, 0 being no pain. Do I have pain with sleeping, right? Write down your level and maybe change up the way you're sleeping. We can go over sleeping positions. And if you guys want, I can make a video on that. If you want to comment down below, you can kind of ask about that. Number three, do I have pain with shaking hands or turning doorknobs? Those are the three typical questions I'll ask people, and we'll monitor that every month, right? We typically work with people for 12 weeks. So every 4 weeks, so 3 times, we'll be asking them those three questions. And we should see that pain level going from an 8, 9, 10 to 3, 4, 5 to a 1, 2, 3, right? It keeps going down until it eventually gets to 0. Okay. The other thing that you want to do is you want to perform 2 to 3 exercises 1 to 2 times a week as maintenance before your workouts for about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. This is so important, guys. A lot of people ask, do I have to do this stuff forever? That's really up to you, right? If you want to get in shape or become pain-free and strong, you don't win at it, right? You don't get to a point and you just say, okay, I'm done. I've achieved it. See you later, right? If you're going to lose weight at the gym, like when you lose that weight, do you just stop after you do it? No, because then you're going to gain the weight back. It's the same thing with marriage or relationship. The point is, when you're getting married, it's to stay married. It's not to get married and then say, see you later, right? That's just not the way it works. And your body is the same way, and you should look at rehab the same way. And I always tell my clients, it's not about doing your best. It's about doing what's required. And sometimes maintenance is what's required. And we've had people with us for 6 months or more because these are the people who create resilient bodies for themselves, then don't get injured or have this issue come back. So even though therapy a lot of times is 4 to 6 weeks, right? Or that's what insurance gives you, therapy can be longer. It's completely normal and it's okay to stay in therapy for a long period of time. And don't worry about whatever someone else says about it. Okay. All right, I'll get off my soapbox there. So just to recap, right? That is everything. We went through those exercises, right? So again, we went through the 2 best stretches to improve your mobility through peanut extensions on the lacrosse balls, banded wrist extension mobilizations, the 2 best strengthening exercises to improve your overall strength, external rotation at 90 degrees off the knee, and then banded W. And for the external rotation, you can use a dumbbell or a band, right? And then we went over how to kind of get that tennis elbow to really permanently stop from returning, right? And that's through continued rehab. All right. So, guys, last thing I want to just kind of mention to you guys is, did you know that we offer 2 free pain and function assessments? Okay. Pain and performance, pain and function. We kind of switch around the terms a little bit. They're done online every month. Okay. So we just filled up for July with 2, but we're going to open up for August for 2 more free pain and performance assessments. So if you want to get a head start for next month, comment assessment down below and we'll bump you to the top of the list, and then we'll reach out. We usually offer a 10-minute free call where we ask you some questions, see if you're a good fit for the assessment, and then we'll get that set up. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, comment down below and stay tuned for more tips and tricks about your elbow, and look out for a tennis elbow guide, which is coming next week. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great rest of your day.